So what is the cost of living of Beverly Hills compared to the rest of Los Angeles, or even compared to the US? The answer will surprise you. Hey, this is Erik Brown, and I again am sharing with you the best of Beverly Hills, where we go through the best and brightest of all that Beverly Hills has to offer. Now, my team and I are getting dozens of phone calls, emails, website visits per day of people that are interested or have questions in buying or selling in Beverly Hills or the greater Los Angeles area, and we are here to help. One of the ways that we do that is we will invite you to subscribe here or connect and make sure that you're getting the notifications. Smash that like button or hit the bell to make sure, as I mentioned, that you're getting those notifications so we can be most helpful with all and any of your questions. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to dive into cost of living. Now, one of the cool things as we look at this is you'll get to look through my lens. I'm a transplant. I'm not originally from here. And so as I've peeked into every corner of the city, you'll get to be able to use my eyes and ears as your eyes and ears. Now, like I said, let's dive right in and see what makes Beverly Hills cost of living different compared to the rest of the city and the rest of the country. So the first thing that I want to share with you about cost of living differences is getting to work. Most people drive here. Now, what's cool about Beverly Hills is if you work in the city and you live anywhere around the city, it's pretty bikeable. There are bike paths that you can get to. We do have birds and other types of app-based vehicles, if you want to call them that, scooters, bikes that people will use to be able to bounce around the city. But we're kind of based around the car. There's not a huge public transportation system here, so that's either a pro and a con depending on the way that you look at it. You got to park, and parking is a little bit more limited. We do have the purple line that is coming in. It is under construction. It is a light rail system that is going to be available. Construction's supposed to be finished depending on the section of the line between 2024 and 2027, and that will open up some transportation, but the way that we get around adds to your cost of living, because with your car, you're gonna have potentially payments and gas and repairs and insurance, etc. So point number one is getting to work. Point number two is going to be your utilities. Like any place else, you're going to have gas and electric and water and sewer and trash. And I'd say in my experience, they're pretty commensurate. I'm spending, SoCal gas is what I have, and I say that I'm spending $40-50 a month. I have Spectrum for my cable, and I have it high end because I do some work from home, and I think I'm spending $70 to $80 a month. Water, sewer, trash seems to be normal from where I'm from, which was Minnesota. So utilities, thankfully, are a part of your cost of living, but won't be a huge part. Number three is going to be food and restaurants. So groceries, I find there's so much fresh produce here, so you can get things like raspberries and avocados and citrus fruits, produce here that is maybe harder to get in the middle of the country, and so those things can be less expensive. But groceries here, compared to maybe Los Angeles, are going to be a little bit more expensive, strictly because those restaurants and shops have to pay for Beverly Hills lease rates or purchase rates to buy the real estate. So groceries can be a little bit more pricey. Restaurants are definitely more expensive than you find around the rest of the country. Now, there are great places where you can find deals or happy hours, but entertainment costs / eating costs are going to be more expensive here. I might pay, if I go to a high-end place and I get a mixed drink, I could pay $20 to $30 for a mixed drink, where if I'm back in the middle of the country, I might be spending half that. Same thing would go with beer and your food menu. I'm going to guess that you're going to spend percentage points higher than you would around the rest of the country. I mentioned as my next point a little bit about groceries and how they're going to be more expensive. Like I said, some things are going to be a little bit cheaper, some are going to be a little bit more expensive, but groceries also are going to factor into your decision as far as cost of living. Now, this is usually a really good spot for me to stop and say, hopefully this information is helpful. And you may know of a person or two that would also benefit from getting some information about what it's like to buy, sell, or invest in Beverly Hills or Greater Los Angeles. And if that is the case, I encourage you to be able to share this information with them. Or, like I said before, subscribe so you're getting all of the latest and greatest details for yourself. Now, let's move on to our next point, which is sales tax. Now, unfortunately in California, sales tax is the highest in the country, 7.25%. Now, when you factor that into federal taxes as well, California is just a more expensive place to live based on the taxation. The next point that I want to bring up is going to be the shopping, so clothes shopping. Now again, we just talked about sales tax, so that's going to come into your decision. And if you're looking at places that are local, you're going to find them to be fairly decently priced. There are places that you can get decent shopping experiences, you can get clothing, you can get house goods that aren't all that expensive. And now, of course, as you know, so many people are using online services like Amazon or others. You can also spend an arm and a leg if you want to. One of the most expensive stores in the country, which is called Bijan's, it is a by appointment only, bespoke, tailored clothing experience. You can find suits that are 5 figures. You also can find all sorts of expensive places right off of Rodeo Drive, but it's not necessarily like that. So your cost of living when it comes to shopping is going to be what you make out of it. My next point is going to revolve around healthcare. Now, thankfully, some of the best healthcare specialists are right in Beverly Hills at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. There's also a variety of hospitals that are close by and in the area that make up a great medical system overall, but it is going to be a bit more expensive. Nationally, as of now, the average patient that is checked in experiences about $46,000 across the US. Here in Beverly Hills and the surrounding areas, it's about $84,000. So you're looking at almost double the expense for an in-hospital experience than you would at other places. And this does not include elective concepts like acupunctures and chiropractics and plastic surgery, which Beverly Hills has a lot of. So you're going to find that healthcare initiatives are great, but they're more expensive than they are in the rest of the country. Childcare makes up another big point. And again, it ranks really, really well. I think childcare right now, not only for price, but also for overall services, ranks 10th out of the US. So Beverly Hills is a really expensive place to live based on housing stock and some of the other costs of living experiences, but childcare isn't absolutely at the tippy top. It ranks 10th. So thankfully that's an expense that does come into play, but isn't the most expensive in the country. As a sidebar, one of the reasons that this area is more expensive is a lot of the service providers, like childcare or a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter, a maintenance person, they have to live close by or in the area. Now, it might not be Beverly Hills, but it's going to be close, so they're allowed to be able to service the people that live in that area. And so since they have to live close, they have to be able to afford it. And to be able to afford it, they have to be able to charge a certain rate. So you're going to find that service providers just charge a little bit more than they might across the US because they have to be able to live in the area. Now, the last that I wanted to bring up about cost of living is housing prices. And I've mentioned this several times, but Beverly Hills is one of the most expensive in the country. You'll find that rental rates are more expensive as well, not just the home ownership. So as of right now, a 1-bedroom can rent starting at $2,000 to $2,500. A 2-bedroom can rent starting at $4,000 to $4,500, and it can go all the way up. I had a client at one point that was looking at a home for rent where the rental range they were looking for was $80,000 to $120,000 a month. And so you'll find that with some of the more luxurious estates with great views and lots of amenities, that the rental rate can be more than someone's annual salary for 1 month. Beverly Hills also has one of the lowest home ownership rates in the US. And when I say Beverly Hills in this example, I mean Greater Los Angeles. It's a city that has a lot of sprawl, and so to live in the area, it's just more expensive, and there isn't the same type of benefits that you may see in other cities in regards to accessibility. We talked about public transportation, and we've now talked about a little bit of a lack of density with the city having more sprawl instead of verticality. It's different than what you might find in Chicago or New York or Boston or San Francisco or Miami, which has more tall high-rise buildings. You find a lot less of that in Beverly Hills and greater Los Angeles. To see a level of change in pricing, you can get just outside of Beverly Hills. So some of the adjacent communities, you'll find big drop-offs in price. Now, it doesn't mean it's not expensive, it still is. But areas like the Valley or Culver City, Palm and Mar Vista, Venice Beach or south thereof are going to be areas that are a little bit more affordable. If you work in Beverly Hills, it's going to add to your commute, but it would add to affordability. Now, you won't see the same levels of appreciation that you won't see in Beverly Hills, and you won't get to take advantage of all the amenities that I've spoke of in other videos, but it would be more affordable. So the last fun fact that I also wanted to share with you was, where does Beverly Hills and Los Angeles rank as far as cost of living across the US? And I'll give you a second to guess. You got it? Well, it actually ranks 9th, interestingly. San Francisco and New York are 1 and 2, but then very quickly there's other communities based on cost of living that's just a little bit more. San Diego ranks higher, Boston ranks higher, Oakland and San Jose, all communities that rank higher. Their overall cost of living is more expensive than Los Angeles, which is a fun fact that you may want to know if you're considering moving anywhere else in the country. And with that, my friends, that's a wrap. That is all that we have to share with you today regarding cost of living in Beverly Hills. Now, if you'd like some additional information, and particularly if you're considering buying or selling or have any questions about Beverly Hills or the Los Angeles area, like I said, my team is getting calls and emails and text messages every day, all day. So we are here to help. We'd love to answer your questions and love to be a resource. You can contact us by phone, by website, you can see our blogs there, or you can see us on any of our social media accounts. And remember, we are one click away from giving you your dream home goals. So let's connect. Talk to you soon.